Hey everyone, it's Time Spiral. Welcome back to some MSEM Cube League. So yeah, continuously we've been trying to get some recordings of the draft portion of these events and trying to make it to gameplay. I'll be honest, the last couple of times just have not worked. We had to deal with a lot of issues outside of the cube space, so to speak. So what we are doing today is we are only committing to doing the draft portion. If it looks like we're going to be able to do the matches, we will do so, but I'm going to do separate uploads because otherwise this isn't going to work. So here we are. We're on Draftmancer, the one and only place where we can do this draft. It's fantastic. And because we had picked Kayiu the last couple of times and it just never seemed to play out correctly, and we're going to be following this player today as our featured drafter. So this is me apologizing to Kayiu. We know we tried to get you at least like once or twice before, and every time it just kind of messes up in the recording. Sorry, never quite makes it up to the YouTube. So we're going to follow the draft. We're going to talk about the picks as we go, see what kind of deck Kayiu builds today. Kayiu tends to build like very different things every time, which is really nice. It makes it enjoyable to follow. We'll do a quick sweep and a few picks of the other players, kind of see what people seem to be picking. And from there, we will have the opportunity to discuss picks. So right off the bat, you can see the cube cards. These foil cards are the champion promos. It's a good way for them to kind of like stand out so that other players can essentially, see the efforts that have gone in for winning. And funnily enough, the one we were highlighting here in pick one was one of Kayiu's promos. So Kayiu's already, I believe, won 2 of the events, and I think has participated in every one. So we're off to a very different start here. We have the first pick in Beyond the Veil, which is one of the format's premium pieces of white removal. When it enters, phases another non-land permanent out, and then it blocks non-land permanents that you don't control with mana value 3 or less. They just simply can't phase in, which does a lot, and it means that even if you get rid of it, the thing doesn't come right back. Fantastic card. Following it up with Celestial Concordance, this cube's 5 mana board wipe that also doubles as a creature generator if you want a 4/4 white angel with flying and vigilance. So it's kind of good in all portions of the draft. If you're falling behind, you sweep. If you're going ahead, you can, finish off the match. So big fan of these 2 cards here. Anything else in white that could wheel around? We've got cards like Conscious Taboo, which are quite good as a 2/1 for 2 that essentially takes away a card from an opponent. They can play it, but it will cost them 2 more to do so. So this card is quite good. Tegan the Sparrowhawk is really good as well. With melee, even in 1v1, it attacks as a 2/2, and its attack trigger either taps or deals damage to tapped creatures, so they are a very good card. Other things that would be nice to see wheel around, Soul Synthesizer just digs so deep and can find so many like niche cards. It just picks anything with an activated ability. So lands, mana rocks, there's a lot that it can do. So really big fan of this card. We've got a green-white pick, which means actually there was quite a few green cards in that previous pack, I think, that would have been nice. So here is a Johnny, Caller of the Host, designed by Splashcat. This Ajani has a 0 that is Proliferate, so technically it's a secret +1. The -2 is quite cool. It exiles a creature and creates a battle token with 3 defense. And when it leaves the battlefield, the exiled card goes back. You protect it. And then the -5 creates Phyrexian Germs, and you put counters on them, all of which synergizes really well with the Proliferate mode. Looks like we're following that up here with a pick 4 Elvish Wayfinder. It's a 2/1 that enters and attacks. It has a pretty good trigger. Reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You can put a land card that doesn't share a name with a land you control into your hand. So it digs pretty good, pretty well for all your non-basics, and generally it tends to do some pretty solid hits. So not a bad card. Okay, yeah, you know what? I agree with this. Antlion Idealist is fine, but it's not like a pick you would want to do right away, and Primordial Artisan either. So I'm actually kind of a big fan of this Inexorable Epidemic. We're like not committed to any color this early, so Inexorable Epidemic is just an absolute house. It's a 6 mana that enchants your opponent. It's a curse. Their creatures get -2/-2, and when they cast non-creature spells, they lose 2 life, and you gain 2 life. So this card just does a lot. And there's been some black cards, some black-green. There's a lot that could wheel back. Professor's Notes, Privileged Son, a little bit of Hand Attack, Discard. Another promo here that came out in the last one. This was Matt's promo for Sunday on the 19th. So Reckless Defiance was picked there. If I spot any others or if I've missed some, I'll try and highlight them because it's always nice to them to get a a little bit of a shout out. And I think it was just Arbor Protector here in the first pack. So Kayiu's win way back on the 7th, our second event, or no, 7th was our first event actually. So the opener had a 3-hole pod. So that first Tuesday was absolutely wild. It was a big, really big event. Ominous Dragon Caller, Aelwyn, Identity Module. This pack's got a little bit of like, not the like huge top ends, though there's some Dragon Package, the Aggro Package. Whisperwood's Exploration is good if you're in black-green. Alright, we seem to be sticking to white. Honestly, this was probably a pretty tough pick. Seto-san is fantastic. I probably still would have picked Seto-san over Pact of the Moon, but I think both are fantastic. Seto-san is just a 3/3 human warrior with Indestructible while you got her out. And then it gives lifelink, it creates warriors, and you can search for auras or equipment. So it just does a lot. Evolution's End is a great piece of removal that exiles creatures or planeswalkers, and they essentially get a data point, which is a sorcery clue that goes to the hand. Going back quickly to Pack 6, Pact of the Moon is also going to be a great wheel if that can get back around. If we're sticking to green encounters, Agency Doorbreakers is quite good as well. I don't think this is the deck for Gawu Humble Sybil, but, you know. Looks like we're going Abzan around here with a Corpse Caster Mage. 2/1 Death Touch. When it enters, it gives a rise to one of the creatures in your graveyard, which you can exile and create tokens of it that are zombies if you pay its cost. So pretty neat cards. Kind of a good mishmash of things here. I expect we'll see cards like Margit Celebrant hopefully wheel. This would be not a horrible pickup here for this deck. Same thing for Astral Lord Crocota, even though it's a triple green. So at this point, Kaiyu's here in the middle. We're just going to do a quick sweep, see what everybody else seems to be doing. Styles looks like they're on Teamer. Could be Teamer Spells, Teamer Aggro, Neon Claw Knight, Ragavan. Some pretty cool stuff that's going here. Nyx looks to be kind of like Naya. I'm seeing ramp pieces being picked up. Petal Weaver, Power Cell Cultivator, Root Module, and Dire Straits kind of leads towards a ramp package here in Teamer as well. So these players might overlap themselves a little bit. So no wonder green's kind of drying up as we're passing here, but big reason to be picking up the white and the black. Passing over to Kumrak. Kumrak is picking up the red pieces, which would make sense. Some white, some black. So seems like players are, oh, well, Margit's got picked up, but that's fine. Seems like players are leaning towards 3-color picks early here, so this is quite interesting. Augur looks to be pretty solidly in black, and then has options in white and in green as well. Some really solid cards here. Nat seems to be in blue-black, so it looks like black's being picked up a little bit all over the place. So that'll be quite interesting. Cool Beans picking up a bunch of red here, some really good ones in Paint with Starflame, Cinderhoof Minotaur. Herald is great here. Identity Module. Tunu is pretty good as a medium, so maybe leaning more towards. And honestly, Shredder of Barricades is one of this week's mystery pool cards as a 3/2 haste, where creatures with toughness greater than powers just simply can't block. So interesting build. And then finally, Lyco. Nice to see Lyco on stuff that he's tends to represent. So we've got kind of like Naya, or mostly green-red ramp. This feels like very much in his wheelhouse. Astral Horn Familiar is a card that he likes very much. So, yeah, good stuff all around. Wheeling back over to Kayiu, we're up to pick 10. I think 8 was the last one where we left off, so it looks like the 9th pick was an Antithesis. Creatures you don't control get -1/-1, and it has Mirage, so you can also drop it early. Combined with Inexorable Epidemic, you can essentially lock your players out of landing creatures. And honestly, if we're sticking to black, Deathless Siege, Kralin Horde, I mean, it looks like we're cutting the green. That's fine. I totally get that here. Pick 10 was Unrelenting. So Unrelenting's interesting. That's also a mystery card here. Normally you would have multiple Unrelentings, but in this case there's only the one, but it still ends up being decent. Lose 3, gain 3. Search for a card is kind of like the big one. Lets you pick up your big pieces. Creatures get -1/-1 is good and flexible, and a 2/2 blue elemental. So honestly, not bad. What else did we pick up? Hanabira, Kogane's Legacy, and Almgrove, Skydancer, Karatoi. I actually don't know how to pronounce that. Karatoi? Privileged Sun. Interesting. And then Swarming Midden is actually a great land to pick up here. Jejun Dark Hunter is playable, and Apparatus is probably definitely going to the sideboard. I don't think we're playing this card. It's definitely among the lowest picks in the cubes, even though it's a pretty flexible card. Maybe if we build a tribal cube down in the future, we can circle on back to this card. So Let's mouse over some of the new stuff. Alm Grove Sky Dancer is a flying lifelink 4/3 for 4. Golden Age wants you to cast an instant or a sorcery, activate a non-mana ability, and attack. You have entered the Renaissance for the rest of the game, so kind of like an Ascend. And you may cast this card from your graveyard as long as you're in a Renaissance. So 4/3. What else do we got? Like I said, we picked up, I said, Privileged Sun here is a 2/2 for 2. Whenever a player discards a card, put a counter on him. When a player has no cards in hand, whoops, kind of blinked right there, he gains flying and lifelink and becomes a demon. This ability triggers only once, and he has demon cycling, so we can go actually use it to pick up a copy of, let's say, Jejun Dark Hunter if we want to find a finisher. Jejun's an absolute house. It's a 6/6 lifelink case that can actually be cast for black if you can sacrifice a creature, and if you sack other demons, he gains flying and indestructible. So, I mean, there's not a huge demon package, but I mean, this card is just pretty flexible here. I'm not surprised here with Zarine's Pariah. Not that this pack didn't have like other good things that a black-white deck might want. Queen Andarli, Channeler, Young Necromancer. It's a bit of a sacrifice package here. Sakaki's kind of hard to make work, but it is only in the mystery slot. Cecilius would be great. Wayfarer Shrine, New Divide are both in here alongside Magmatic Torrent, so plenty of fetching. But Zarine's Pariah has proven itself to be absolutely phenomenal. It's a 5/4 flyer for 6. During each of your turns, you can simply cast a spell of each color from your graveyard. So even if you're not like building around it, you're able to cast a black and a white in this case every turn. Doesn't exile, so this card is phenomenal. So you can keep casting your removal, you can keep casting your creatures that have like gone. Really cool stuff. In this pick, yep, okay, I can see why we're doing this. If we're, wanting to lean more into the black and we're not too interested in Proud Lion, honestly. I mean, card's fine, but it's not really what you're doing. Yeah, Sunrise Orchard is pretty decent. Enters tapped unless you control a basic land. You choose a color as it enters, and it adds a mana of the chosen color. So this card actually does quite a bit of work. So as long as it comes down on turn 2, it's an untapped source of pretty much whatever you want. So think of it like a mixture of the, the paths and some other stuff, All right, some other stuff here in white-black that would be interesting. It's funny, I'm looking for specific pieces and I'm not quite seeing them. Kalan makes sense. Kalan is fantastic. It's a 2/3 vigilance that just exiles a non-land permanent an opponent controls with mana value 2 or less. And when you do, they get an idle token as like a payoff. But honestly, you don't care. You give them the idle token and you do a great work here. Another promo here in Promised Exaltation was one last week as well. Ubitsa Forge is nice, and that Colonel Quarantine is a great piece of removal. This is another kind of like board wipe type card. It's flash if you got another enchantment. Otherwise, it just enters and exiles all other creatures until it leaves. Enchantments are actually pretty sticky in this iteration of the cube. Colonel Quarantine ends up proving pretty tough to remove. And if you're picking up Colonel, Antithesis, Inexorable, suddenly your opponent doesn't have enough enchantment removal, it's going to be a house. Ubitsa Forge is really cool. When it enters, it creates essentially a construct. And because it counts itself, it's essentially a 2/2 for 3. And then you can keep paying 5 tap, discard a card to keep creating more. So in the long run, this card will probably overwhelm someone and can take over the day. We have Arctic Mine here. Yeah, perfectly decent piece of fixing. Things that we want to wheel. It's been kind of hard. I'm looking through the pack and there's not been stuff that I'm like, ooh, definitely want that back. But like Gaoming is fine. But you have to control a lot of creatures. This deck doesn't seem like it's doing a lot of the creature stuff. Like, we're decently low. I'm trying to see if there's any here that I would consider creatures. Okay, Ubitsa Forge is a creature. Seto-san is technically a creature, but it's actually a planeswalker, which is actually great for cards like Celestial Concordance, which only hits creatures. Same as Colonel... Oh, well, no, I guess this is... Okay, it's indestructible. That's the one I was looking for. Colonel Quarantine, unfortunately, will still, I believe, exile Seto-san. But, yeah. Good stuff all around. What would we really want out of this pack? I mean, Gaoming is there, but I wouldn't assume that's high. I mean, there's flexible cards like Pinnacle of Purity, which can host somebody else's graveyard strategy. Blind Eternal, if ever we find Reanimator pieces, but not really where this deck is leaning, I think. Restless Explorer as well is a flexible piece that can find lands, but, I mean, Swarming Midden would not be a horrible land to go dig for, but, it is what it is. Well, speaking of Reanimator pieces, or at least just value. Here's Leyline Invoker. It's a 1/3 for 2. When it enters in the beginning of your upkeep, you may mill 2 cards, so you can actually opt not to. And you can pay 6 tap sack. You can bring back a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. The ability costs 1 less for each creature card in your graveyard. So This can bring back some pretty big stuff, and I mean, Zarin's Pariah and Jejun are 6, which, you know, is around where you want to start bringing stuff back. I really hope cards like Arroyo come back. This card is amazing as a 4/4 for 4. Once during each of your turns, when a card's put into your graveyard from anywhere, you can cast it, and you can spend mana of any color to cast it. And when it's put into your graveyard from anywhere, you can cast it. You do have to pay the cost, but this is such a sticky threat. Reclusive Augur also fits pretty well. It's a reanimator piece that's a 1-drop, so when it dies, it goes to your yard, and you can exile it from your yard to reanimate something else. This card's really good. Malefic Portal brings back creatures with mana value 5 or less for 3. We're kind of looking for the 6 range, so I can see why we're passing this up here. Heliod's interesting, but that's more of if we were creating a bunch of tokens, so something to keep in mind. Looks like we're picking up a Wayfarer's Lantern as a 2-mana rock. It's got tap, untap a basic land. Pretty decent stuff. We've got other ramp pieces here in Unicorn of the Veil. And some big top end here in Demon of Dark Shadows if we were on a kind of like a sacrifice plan. So, card's pretty good. Nice to see that Cecilius of Wicked Ways wheeled back. I mean, it makes sense. It was a triple black card. The +1 is remove all counters, which tends to be used to absolutely murder other planeswalkers. Or, you know, counter heavy decks. But mostly it's the +1, each opponent discards a card every turn. And then the -2 is a fantastic piece of reanimate as well. So it's exiling a creature or planeswalker with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control. And you can create a token that's a copy of it. So it's pretty good. And yeah, the -7 obviously will, like, you know, absolutely demolish someone if they get to pick it up. Because opponents get an emblem at the beginning of your upkeep. You have to pay, sacrifice 7 permanents or you lose 7 life, you know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, it looks like nothing here is going to be wheeling back, so everything here is going. Not too surprised. I think it's about time we do a last little sweep real quick. Nyx looks to be, and a whole bunch of stuff. I'm seeing green, blues, reds, infinite. Interesting. Could be some ramp stuff. Styles looks to be solidly in the red-blue. Lyco solidly in green. Cool Beans, kind of like a Naya or a red-white aggro, kind of hard to tell at this point. Nats solidified into blue-black. Augur into mostly black, but some white, a little bit of green. Looks like maybe kind of cutting Kayiu off here. Kumrak in black-red, which would explain why not much black is making its way all the way back here. So some last couple of picks here. Let's see if we missed anything important. So yeah, I mean, these are not huge picks. Void Portal is kind of tough to play if you're not really building around it. Atal the Shroudmaker so late is really good. This card is fantastic, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see play if we're sticking to the white. Eakin's Portal is probably going to be in the sideboard. Gaoming and Heliod, honestly, like, that's not a bad 3. This makes tokens. I mean, obviously you don't want to create an additional token of your legendary, but, you know, additional tokens for Atal is great. And then puts counters on each other creature you control, like, kind of synergizes really well. There's definitely a token strategy here. Last pick, Helen Tramp. It's a good green-blue walker, but if no one's really in that green-blue space and looking for it. I mean, a 4/4 hexproof trample on a +2, prevent all damage, then you can draw cards. This card just does a lot. The emblem's also quite neat. Just simply whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage, you get to draw a card. And yeah, that emblem will stick around for a long time. Alrighty, moving into pack 3, and yes, these picks are technically 16 pack because of the mystery slot. In the future, you might notice we're going to probably change that up so that one of the mystery slot is the 15th pack in a cube. It's going to make it a little easier to build out the lists, but it is what it is. Very interesting. Looks like Kayiu is grabbing an early Mattia. So here's the thing. Mattia is an absolute house. Mattia is really hard to deal with. It's got flash, it's got reach. When it enters or becomes tapped, you put counters on anything, and then, you know, you can force things to be blocked. It just does a lot. I mean, we had Order Module, which could have been good. Yimo Wang could have been good. Legacy War Mask is probably not what you're looking for right now, but it's not horrible. Once More with Heart can do a bit, but not much. It doesn't get back Planeswalkers, so can't get back Seto-san or your Ubitsa Forge, because that's an artifact. But I guess hating out Mattia might just be I don't want to deal with this. I want somebody else to have it, because the pods play the same cube. You can technically hate draft, but maybe it's a speculative pick. I mean, the card functions very well in this list, I would say. So, yeah. All right, let's condense that again and keep an eye on what's going on. And like I said, if we actually manage to record some of the matches, we're going to do it in separate videos because leaving it running is causing some issues. So we definitely want to put up some content, especially we know this has been the new list. We want to showcase it. So an early Sinner Solace here as a second pack here in second pick. Oh, I'm saying that all the time. Second packs, third whatevers. As your second pick, it's a pretty decent piece of hand attack. I designed it, so I'm happy to see that some people are valuing it decently. It can hit absolutely anything and it exiles it. That's the cool thing, and there's no really drawback. And if you hit a land, they can conjure essentially a basic to the top of their library. So if they really want the fixing back. So yeah, this card can hit a lot, and constructed, the fact that it's 2 mana, not 1 mana, means it hasn't seen really a lot of play, but great card. We also picked up Power Module. I love the modules. These ones are really fantastic. So you pay 4, you get one of them for free, and then you can always pay triple black at later modes, later times to pick up the additional modes. So this can be a tutor, this can be a removal, or this can be a Phyrexian Arena, and then you can go and pick up the other ones as you need. Eldritch Emergence is a really good board wipe again. You can cast it as though it had flash if you've got a horror, then it nukes all non-horror creatures. Atal is a horror, it doesn't kill it, and it will stick around forever. Looks like we grabbed Reflected Moment here, I believe. Yep, put it in the sideboard. This card's also really annoying if someone can... There's a way of just looping Reflected Moment. It's quite hard to do to get to that part, but it is technically doable. Here, looks like we went for Shardstone Rift. That's nice. That's fine. Sometimes you need the fetch lands to get out your Arctic Mines or whatnot. Looks like Corpse Caster Mage being removed here, not making the cut. There's quite a few things that could wheel around. We've got the Mystery Pool, Paladin's Attendant. Not that we really want Paladin's Attendant, but Erebos, the Imminent End. Do we have a lot of ETBs? I would have to double check. There's a few, and having them die and re-trigger would not be horrible, but it looks like it's a little few. I mean, you know, it's not horrible, but Folson's not horrible. Just a 2/4 for 3. Whenever you attack, you can search for a Plains card. Whenever a Plains enters, you get a Soldier. I mean, this card's just very generic and very good. Doesn't really need much support. Ayala's Effigy. I am mumbling my words today. Super apologize for that. I guess it's just been a long day. It's just a 2-drop. It's a mana rock. And yeah, you can sack non-land permanents to have it become a 2/2 construct. If you have a deck that really wants you to sacrifice or have things dies, like, I don't know, Twin Fire Dragon, you can just have an Ayala's Effigy to easily trigger that as much as you want. Some really powerful red cards being sent off. Valerie Kripak is quite good. Blood Cult's not nearly on the top of the list, but, you know, not horrible. Reconstructed Adept is essentially a Snapcaster Mage. Really good card. I'm assuming this isn't going to wheel back. It's quite good, and I know some people around here are in those colors. Merelier is quite good if you can get some artifacts. The fact that it just tutors into the battlefield, and this has Deception, which is our ninjutsu. Essentially, that means that it's very hard to counter this creature. Heart of Zadina being this late, I mean, again, pick 6, but probably not anyone seems to be building around it. And it's nice that with the changes to the cube, we don't have to worry too much about the infinite mana deck, which a few players had noted, and especially a player who was coming into this pretty new, not really playing much with the MSEM cards. There was a bit of an issue with it's hard to play around, and it was kind of like an unfortunate experience for them. So we're happy to be able to tweak the cube just slightly at the mid patch to keep things nice and fresh for everyone, and then you know, make sure everyone's having a good time. Okay, piece of removal here in Unright. This does a lot. 3 damage is quite good. And wow, that is a late I keep saying late. Pack 8. It's middle of the pack. That's fair. Graz the Nightshaper is just really good. And there's the Order module coming back around. Honestly, this is going to go really fast from here. So if my clicks declick, I apologize. So Graz is exactly like Atal, except of making 2 tokens. It just returns creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. It has to be non-legendary, of course. And then it can make tokens that are copies of them once it's the big form. Atal also just gives all your creatures flying. So it's kind of scary as a flying 7/7. So it's one of the ones that has actual evasion. We also picked up, like I said, we picked up Order module. Great card here. Creates 3s with spirit. Oh my Gosh, I should just give up. Create 3 spirits with flying. Exile until it leaves the battlefield, or it's a anthem, so it can be all 3. Quite good. What else did we pick up? I think we picked up a land. Yeah, in Blossoming Verge. 3 tap, draw a card, but you can only spend mana by basics. Most of your lands are basics, so this card is just really nice. If you've actually seen the spoilers for Aether Drift, there's a card that's very similar to this, but it rummages, and it takes a lot longer to get online, so this card's just quite good. Serene Chapel here turns into a 2/1 white spirit with flying, and when it attacks, you can exile a card from a graveyard. It's really good. It's the white version of the Swarming Midden Cycle. It was really fun to re-art these as kind of like science fiction lands, so that was a fun little thing to do. Late Oros here. This card's also a bit of a house. I guess no one's in deep red. I think we did a quick check earlier, but no one's in like absolute mono red aggro. This is red-black. I can see why we passed it up here. Oh, there is some red, but not fully red, so very interesting. Looks like someone's going for the gambling table. We were joking about this. If you manage to get exactly 21 mana value on the board, you win, and it got cut. Oh, there goes that hope and dream. I was really excited to see if someone was going to give it a shot. So 3 picks left. This draft is wrapping up pretty nicely, and honestly, it's taking the right amount of time. As players get used to it, drafts take about 25-30 minutes, which is exactly where we want that to happen because it's, multiple picks per minute. It's essentially 48 picks, I believe, and when we're able to do that in 25-30 minutes, it gives a lot of flexibility for the rest of the event. So it's always exciting. It's nice to see that the Cube League has been pretty popular. We're firing a pod every event. We haven't failed to fire yet, which is quite fun. Hopefully this continues, and we hope that the novelty and the mystery pool, followed by the monthly change on the cube lists, means that we'll have players willing to try new stuff. I mean, next month is going to be exciting. It's going to be based on the Alkaba and Alkaba Rise of Soli sets, which were designed by Zangi. So, really neat stuff here. I'm really surprised that Kayiu did not pick up Fulson, King of Valamir here. I think this would have been my pick. I mean, obviously, it's just whenever you attack, you search for a Plains. I mean, that's not horrible. It's a 2/4 for 3. We're kind of low on that creature department here. When Plains enters, you get a soldier. Kind of works well with what you've got. But I guess maybe one Blood Cult Covenant. Are we splashing, or was this just a pick to weed it out? We'll see later in our matches. Hopefully we can catch a few of them, like I said, and see if anything else made the cut. The one thing with Draftmancer, if you're viewing it like I am as a spectator, of course, you only see up to where the players finish doing their deck builds, and then afterwards, once they load it into Cockatrice, there might have been future changes, so we'll bring those up if we do end up playing. That was a late Cassia the Carefree. That's a really good card. Did that stick into... Okay, yeah, we're in the deck list. I mean, yeah, this card's fantastic. Get a 1/1 or a 1/1 flyer or a 2/2 on the -1. For permanent entering the battlefield, cause an ability, it triggers an additional time, and then -3, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control, and then you can always keep paying 2 white, and essentially you recast it from the battlefield. So you put it back on the stack, you cast it, and then it resolves. So, and a last pick here in a Gorganith Rune Maw, and it looks like the draft is completed. So as thanks for Kayiu being our featured drafter for today. Yeah, play Beastie Ball. A lot of people have been talking about it on the MSE server. The game looks absolutely fantastic. I'm very tempted to pick it up. I'm a volleyball player, so the concept of Beastie Ball is right up my alley. Looks like Styles has something really spicy here on this red-blue list. I'm seeing a lot of cool cards. I am excited to see what a lot of powerful cards too, honestly. Some big top end here and spells. Wow, this looks really cool. Ooh, this is a hard... are we just going all the best card ramp? I'm seeing a lot of the ramp pieces. Land drops. We've got payoffs in Gate of Realms. Intrepid. Okay, yeah. Pretty spicy. Honestly, we've got great stuff going on. Kayiu here, as we said, in black-white. Yeah. Yeah, so this is looking good. So hopefully we can have some match data for you real soon. We're going to go and put up the match for everybody else. So thanks for sticking around, and yeah, let's have a good one.